Hello Mysidians, and welcome to a Mysidia Post video. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about draft. This weekend I went down to Everett, Washington to play in a draft at Geeky Villain and had a great time. I drafted Ice Water, as you can see up on the screen here, with the new fancy FF Dex layout, and we're going to talk a little bit about my deck, how it went, and some of the cards that I thought really stood out. Before I get started, I just want to say thank you to all the players down at Geeky Villain and also the owner Edward. You guys are fantastic. You always take care of us, and I just can't believe how generous you all are. Can't wait to come down in August and play some more. So we'll talk a little bit about each card and also the draft. We had a pretty strange pod, and Ice was coming to me, which was surprising because it's a very powerful element in this Opus. So I took it right away, and I was trying to identify my second element, and I ended up going with water. As I kind of played around, I looked into a few elements. I was looking at fire, I was looking at earth, and water just ended up being the one that was available to me. So let's take a look at some of the cards. Right off the bat, the standout card for me is Laguna. So Laguna enters the field, you search for an ice forward, add to your hand. He's an 3 CP 8K, which is just nuts, right? So once you search your card, you got a 2 CP discount in Laguna. He's always good to play. You can play him early, you can get more forwards, and you want to be playing more forwards because you want to be pushing the game and just play more forwards, because you're only playing the 6 damage. If you can swing in early, you're going to get ahead, and you're going to get them into a position where they're going to need to block. So he paired really well with Kisis here, who would search for more FF8 cards, which in the deck, or sorry, forward specifically, there was only herself, Laguna, Adele, so there wasn't that many for her to search, but I mean, that's a very useful EX burst, and oftentimes she would come down and you know, cost for 2 CP. Another great target to search was the Airborne Trooper, who a lot of people have made fun of. It was my spoiler, by the way, but he actually came in handy. He was a very powerful blocker. He was so efficient at 3 CP, and because you're playing draft and you're often just playing a lot of forwards, I never even really worried about his second ability where you need to play a forward for him to attack. Oftentimes you can play Laguna and then you'll be able to swing through anyway. So he ended up getting me so much value. Definitely one of the most powerful cards that I drafted. I would recommend trying him out. So otherwise for powerful cards, obviously your Rosa coming in, that was very, very strong. It made it all stalled board states kind of just shift my direction. All of a sudden they can't trade with even powers, so I came out ahead in there. Geese and Terra were very relevant in that they're just 8K forwards, and that's just a good power to be at. I didn't use them that much. I used Terra a lot because I was running 3 and I could search her. Geese, his ability never actually comes in handy. Like you need him to take less damage than his power or he'll break, but even then you don't want to deck out in draft, and you can't really do much with 1000 power. He's not trading into something more powerful. I did drop him main phase 2 at one point to have a 7K trade up. I also used Go-Go quite a bit in 2 matchups, and one of those was actually 2 of them were against the new Cecil hero, and copying that ability was pretty powerful. And I even used him with Nail once to break 2 backups, or sorry, remove 2 backups from the game, and then I would ping something for 8K, and that was just super powerful. The only problem is that oftentimes you're not going to have an opponent's forward that has an ability to copy, so he just becomes this 7K. He's not really doing much, so he's very, very situational. Bannon was somebody that I was excited about, but when it came down to it, he was just somebody to activate my Airborne Trooper. I wasn't going to use him because there's just too many things to ping him off, and I didn't want to roll the dice on his ability. The games weren't slow enough to take advantage of his dull ability, so we didn't really play with that very much. Now this Moogle 12 was pretty wacky. It's attack or blocks, so he's basically always scrying your deck constantly, and the best part about that is they've got maybe 2 forwards. You can block their 7K, trade into it, arrange some EX bursts on the top of your deck, and then they keep attacking, you hit your EX burst, and you got a bit of a swing. So that was also a very good card, very solid effect. If I had a really bad draw, I could play him early and then fix my deck, fix my draw. So I honestly would recommend drafting that card. Uke is pretty hard to get advantage from because people don't want to block him, or they're just going to have a stronger forward. They'll take the discard. So he didn't come into handy that often. Just at that 7k, I'd want him to do more than just be a discard mechanic. Adele, I took right away because I saw, well, 5 CP 9k, so that's got to be pretty good. But I often didn't want to play her. I played against opponents, and since we were playing best of 3, I knew what their deck had, and I knew that they had either removal, or I knew that I needed to press my advantage, and oftentimes it was much better to spend CP on cheaper things and go wide than to sink into this Adele and then have this powerful effect. But I don't actually want to discard that often either, because I was just always keeping forwards coming because I wanted to play forwards, activate my airborne troopers, swing out with them, and go from there. So another very potent card that I wasn't actually expecting was this Marlborough. So I kind of had a bias against these guys. They seem pretty weak because they can't block, and I wish I had kind of gotten over my bias earlier, because this guy is insane. You have to play out some cards first, like get your airborne troopers out there, get your Lagunas out there, have some forwards out so you can be attacking, you can be blocking, and then you start playing your Marlboroughs so you don't fall behind. They start attacking. Your opponent never wants to block them. As soon as they block a Marlborough, you're coming in with all your other forwards. Multiple games, I got 2 Marlboroughs out at once, swing with both of them, they can't block. If they do, they lose 4,000 power. So it got into these situations where my opponents couldn't figure out how to deal with them, and they dodged removal on my turn, or sorry, on my opponent's turn, and I had no hang-ups about attacking because they literally can't block. So I could just swing and take it home. I had 4 summons. Kukulane was okay. I mean, both of these, Mind Flayer and Kukulane, great to draw a card, great X Burst. Mind Flayer set up a few things, set up a Zalira one, set up a Lethal another time. Kukulane let me take out a Azul by wiping his abilities, but overall I pitched these guys for CP in favor of just my forward centric strategy. Zalira was hard to get online because there just wasn't that many targets. So many people were playing 4 costs, but obviously that was very handy when I did see a 5 cost, when I did see a powerful 3 cost. You want this to hit Livia, but it's not going to happen. She's going to have Brave almost all the time. So now when we're looking at the backups, there's a few that were absolute home runs. Lock would be the first. So you can name any card type. If you need backups, you name backups. He's going to help you set up, you're going to be consistent, you're going to be spending less CP than your opponent, you're going to win. You can play him if you need to color fix. Search for backups, find your 3rd color, whatever it is, well, hopefully. You can use them to search forwards, so you can be aggressive. I only have 4 summons, so if I select summon, then I know that he's going to find like one of these 3. If I select monster, he's going to find that Marlborough, because it's the only monster in the deck, so I know I can draw Marlborough. It's just such a powerful effect, and I think that we're going to have to use this in Constructed, but it's going to come at a cost of cutting the other lock. So I think there's going to be some decks that won't run that lock, and you'll run this backup lock instead. Numu was also very powerful, just such a good utility. Both Numu and White Mage were often early plays, but then late game they suddenly become very powerful. So you can play Numu off 1 backup, just you pitch for him and then tap your backup to Delph free something. You can do it early to set up your 2nd backup and then get a point of damage in, or you can play him off 3 backups and kind of swing through it in the late game, but he was always useful for me. So same thing with White Mage, you can play as your 2nd backup. If you've played a water backup first turn, you play this 2nd turn and tap your water backup to draw the card, and that's just a very efficient play. Sid Alstein was pretty hard to figure out. I was waiting for my opponents to make big plays where they play out their hand, and they just wouldn't happen, and I'm just wasting the CP in my hand, and it's burning a hole. Like, I just need to get it out or discard it or something. So the games that it was pivotal, it won me the games. It broke forwards, it all froze them. And then other games, it was totally useless, and you just need to get it out of your hand because your opponent has a lot of cards in hand. So it's definitely worth drafting. It's an EX burst. I would put 3 in my deck again, but I would just be more aware of my situation when playing with that. Emperor Cristal is an incredible card. 5 CP, break a forward. That is insane. His break cost there, put him, dull him and put him to the break zone. You don't have to play something out. There's nothing in the set for him to play. You can just break him. You can play another one, and then you can break him. You can play Sidalstein. You can break him. You can play a Numu. Okay, so he can do a lot of things, and it's just this unconditional removal. It's super powerful. There's not a lot of removal in this set, so if you see this guy, you're taking him right away. I mean, I was very lucky to get 2, 1 foil, but it was just a no-brainer. When I saw him, you take him. Larsa was very situational. When I played against Sky Pirates, I had to take it right away, or I had to play it right away, and it was great against the ping damage. Other matchups, it's a 2 CP water backup. That's about it. King of Concordia, used it once to close out a game for that power boost. Never had a forward return to my hand. It doesn't seem very good to me, but it filled up my backup line. It did win me that game. I don't think I would have liked any of my forwards to come back to my hand. Even, Laguna to search again, I think I'd just rather him on the field. I'd rather be swinging, so I'll leave it at that. And I think that's it for all the cards. We've talked about them all. So overall, I went 3-1 in the draft, and I had a really great time. The first round I lost to something very similar to myself. It was like an Ice, Lightning, and Fire deck, but it had FF8 package. It had Squall and Renoa, which I did not have, and I just kind of got overpowered in the third game. But he also had some Headhunter synergy. It was silly how many things he was able to fit into his deck. The second round was against like a very mono-earthy type of deck. A lot of power, a lot of like just big forwards, cheap forwards. Unfortunately, I was able to close out those games because I had dull freeze, I had break, I had all sorts of ways to just kind of mess around. My Rosa came in handy there. Round 3 was against Windwater Sky Pirates, and that was a really tough matchup. There's some really efficient plays in that deck. The Balthier and the Fran work very well together, but then you can also drop other like little ping damages, and the Sky Pirates, like, they're just very efficient. He also had a Yasmat that was very powerful, and I had to, I had to hold on to my Emperor Cristal waiting for him to drop it so I could deal with it right away, because there just wasn't that much else to deal with it in my deck. The final round was against Fire Lightning General, and this guy, who was one of the funniest opponents I've ever played against, and one of the most fun set of matches I've ever played in FFTCG, he had the full general package. He had Nail, he had 3 Gaius, 3 of the 2 CP Fire guy, he had Livia's, he had Nero's, and he also had a Chaos, and at one point he actually was able to Chaos Ifrita me to just completely ruin my day and wipe 3 8Ks off my board. So that went to 3 games. It was very competitive, but in the end I came 4th on tiebreakers, which isn't bad. But I'm just happy with how the draft went. I hadn't really played any of the cards. We didn't have a pre-release in Vancouver, so I was just excited to be playing with the cards, and I learned quite a bit about some of the cards and how much better or worse they were than I thought. So in closing, I want to play more draft. I was kind of hesitant about this set. Opus 8 seemed way more limited friendly, but I think this set's going to bring a different type of limited skills. There's going to be different lines that you have to take, because there isn't this direct removal that's readily available in a bunch of elements. There's no damage spells quite like there was in Opus 8, so we have to work a little bit harder and get creative to win these matches and to build these decks. So hope you enjoyed the video. If you're looking forward, we're gonna be doing more content here. I'm gonna talk more about some constructed decks that I've been working on, and I'm also gonna be doing some meta analysis. So keep an eye out here for more stuff, and please, you know, like and comment, subscribe, and help a brother out. And we'll see you next time.